Hello everyone, and thanks for watching what we call the Telco Tech Talk. I'm Sigve Brekke, I'm the President and CEO of the Telenor Group. We are a telecom company operating in the four Nordic countries and also in Asia, altogether having around 180 million customers. I'm here with Ruza. She is Telenor Group CTO, Chief Technical Officer. And what we do, Ruza, with this Telco Tech Talk is to try to go a little bit deeper into how new technology and how new operating models are changing and reshaping, disrupting the telco industry as we know it. And this is the fifth time we do that. So to those of you that haven't seen the four previous versions, please look into that as well. And today we have a very interesting guest. It's Kiran Thomas. Welcome, Kiran, and thanks for joining us. Kiran, you are the CEO of Jio Platforms, company operating in India. Everything is big in India, including what you are doing, now operating a platform for more than 400 million customers, 4G and 5G customers. And not only that, you are also working together with some global strategic partners, being Meta, Google, Intel, Qualcomm, to mention some of them. So thanks for joining us, Kiran. And my first question to you is, can you explain a bit on what Jio Platforms are really all about? We have heard a lot about it, but please tell everyone what you are trying to achieve.
Firstly, nice to see you, Sigve and Ruza. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to join you on this platform where many eminent speakers have come before me. Jio Platforms was born of a simple vision, which was set by our chairman about 5 years back, which was about creating a digital society in India. That was the vision given to us, a very broad charter. Through some brainstorming, we broke it down into two simple pillars, what we call digital connectivity and digital solutions. Now, digital connectivity is what we started with in 2016, because if you're not connected, you're not digital. We started with 4G, and that has been a great journey, like you mentioned in your preamble, now approaching 450 odd million mobile customers, all of them broadband, all of them LTE. Our vision there was very simple: connect everyone, everything, and every place with the best quality broadband services available, and with the highest affordability and reach in the country. So that is a vision that we are executing on. 4G is well deployed in India. We reach nearly 100% of the landmass and the population of the country. We are a large country with more than 1 billion people and about 3 million square kilometers of landmass. And all that has been done in a very short period of time. 5G rollout is underway. And again, we have a very ambitious rollout where now in the next 12 months, effectively, we are trying to replicate a 5G deployment, which is on par with what we have done in 4G over the last more than 5 years. So that's exciting. On top of that, we have a fiber to home deployment, which is now more than 7 million. We call it Jio Fiber. But using 5G, we are now bringing a variant of that called Air Fiber, Jio Air Fiber, which is using 5G to provide fixed wireless access. And our ambitions have become that much more. Now, instead of tens of millions, we are thinking about hundreds of millions of homes and small businesses and enterprises that we can connect using Air Fiber. We also have a very large narrowband IoT presence in the country, which is also pan-India, and working with governments and other enterprises to enable IoT solutions there as well. So that's the connectivity side of it. On top of it came the digital solutions part of it. And in the Reliance Group, we are very fortunate that we have a number of very strong operating companies who are certainly number one in the country and in many cases a leading player globally. So for example, if you take telecom itself, we are probably one of the largest now in the world. Manufacturing has been a mainstay of the group for multiple decades. We are also the largest both online and offline retailer now in India. So, and all of these are amenable for digital transformation. So starting with telecom, but surely extending into other industry verticals. Jio Platforms was created in 2019 to bring about platforms, products, and solutions which can transform those industries, primarily working very closely with our own operating companies. But once these solutions are proven, then our ambition was that we will be able to then generate value by offering these solutions to other customers, both in India as well as globally. They are a young company. Like you said, telecom itself is only about 5+ years. Jio Platforms, which is all about digital solutions, is even younger than that, about three odd years. But a lot of achievements already underway, like, for example, the entire 5G core and parts of the radio solutions that we are now using in our 5G deployment has been built by Jio Platforms from scratch in India. And that's now proving itself in the field. And if all goes to plan, these are products which could be offered globally as well. And the same is true across other industry verticals. About 12,000 engineers now working across multiple industry verticals, and we are growing these teams to support even more industry verticals as well as customers. So this in a nutshell is who we are. A simple vision of creating a digital society starting in India, but once proven here at scale, and with obviously affordability challenges and a number of other challenges we need to overcome to succeed in this market, hopefully these solutions will also find relevant customers globally as well.
Yeah, and at least Kiran, in Telenor, we believe that very much in building relationship with the partner and building the true partnership. At the same time, we know that none of the companies, even I will as well challenge Jio Platform, is not big enough to deliver the complete solution to the end user. But the partner landscape is very dynamic and changing all the time and influenced by different acquisition and different development. But we need to make certain bets and choices in order to move the needle and move forward and pursue the growth opportunities. At least looking Jio from outside in, we believe that you've been quite successful in basically taking the advantage of those dynamics. But at the same time, you have made in India, but as well scale and made for the world. You have a global approach. So you have a global approach when it comes to the partners and as well when it comes to the teams and the solutions that you are building. So how do you see that picture, and how do you basically leverage the opportunities to work with the partners? What are you looking when you are making those partnership arrangements, and how do you work with them and with the operators in order to pursue those opportunities and the growth?
Absolutely, Ruza. I think right from day one, and not just in Jio, but in the Reliance Group overall, we have always believed in associating with the best in the world. So we are firm believers in forming win-win partnerships. And in Jio Platforms in particular, we are fortunate to have as partners some of the leading tech companies in the world. And I think you already mentioned Meta, you already mentioned Google, but even people like Microsoft, Qualcomm, Intel. These are all stalwarts of the tech world, and they are now strategic partners working shoulder to shoulder with us. And with each of those partners, we have very, very ambitious and innovative co-development efforts underway. Because we believe that there's creativity which is not a monopoly. Certainly not, we don't believe that we have all the answers. So we need to work with the best in the world to develop some of these solutions, even though we ourselves may have certain ambitions in that space. Having said that, I think the digital space, as we enter into additional industry verticals, the position that we want to take is that we want to be owning the end-to-end solution that we can bring to a customer. And that solution need not be entirely built by us. In fact, we believe that we need to bring in the best components in whatever that solution is. And in the digital world, you have everything from sensors to cloud to edge to a lot of software, AI, data. I mean, if you look at the landscape, it is a very rich landscape with a lot of innovation happening. So our belief is that when we go to a customer, we obviously have certain components that we are bringing to the party, maybe things like connectivity and some of those assets where we are well positioned to differentiate. We certainly will lead with that. But by no means are we saying that all the components have to be from our, factory, so to speak. We bring the best that there is in the world, even from a solution perspective. Now, the partnership story becomes even more interesting as we become global, because when we go to other markets, certainly we don't understand other countries and other customers and the nuances of those respective markets, as well as some of the partners in those markets. In fact, we believe specifically our counterparts in other markets, which are the established or challenger telecom operators who may have similar ambitions in those markets, become a very natural partner for us as we get in there, both from a distribution perspective to reach those customers, and also the local partners who understand the local realities that much better, and also have the relationships to be able to take some of the ideas that we may have proven in India, but to make it relevant for those other markets as well. So overall, we see the partnership story becoming even stronger as our ambitions are extending from a single country plans that we've been following so far to extending to other parts of the world.
Could I just pick up on that point, Kiran? You said that the telecom industry is a relatively young industry. But despite that, you see that most telecom operators have added a lot of complexity and legacy over those years. And that has ended up in both operational and technology complexity. How, with your approach, how would you be able to help with that, to reduce that complexity? And what would you do if you were to work together with a telecom operator that yes, it's only maybe 2 decades old, but still have all that legacy and complexity that need to be changed?
A great question. In fact, a lot of people, when they look at Jio, one of the comments that we have always heard is that you are a relatively young telco, so you don't understand the complexities and some of the legacy that accumulates once you have spent maybe a couple of decades, in existence. But I think we realize that 6 years in, we are starting to face some of the same challenges, right? Because when we started, let's say in 2016, when we launched, the cloud was not there as an option. It was not mainstream. Yeah. Edge was far away, right? Network as a function and all those great things which are happening now was kind of in the works. People are talking about it, but things have evolved quite fast. And in technology, 6 years is almost like maybe a couple of decades in most other industries. So things do change very fast. And one of the secrets that we've found to keep pace is to think about continuous transformation and continuous evolution rather than trying to do huge disruptive jumps occasionally. So the way that we have tried to manage this complexity is how do we create an architecture, technical architecture, and how do you create an organizational architecture where changes can happen in small increments, in small pockets, and they are happening all the time. So that has been our approach. So what does that mean practically? Practically, what it means is that we have dramatically simplified our overall architecture, software architecture and technology architecture into what is today called service-based architectures and so on, where we have very simple but loosely coupled components talking to each other through APIs and other interfaces which are relatively high-level abstractions. When I mean high-level abstractions, I mean not knowing the nitty-gritties of what is inside that component, but having a much simpler interface being exposed to the rest of the architecture. So what this means is that if you want to upgrade something, and we just went through a massive exercise to upgrade our entire rating and charging system, so to speak. And today we have a rating and charging system which handles about a couple of million, if not more, transactions per second. I mean, it's a massively distributed system because we have real-time rating and charging across our network. And we went through it without a single other system other than this component ever knowing that we did it. Because we had very clean abstractions of the rest of the architecture talking to this. We were able to create some infrastructure where we were able to spin in the new component, run it side by side, and then over time spin out the existing legacy component that we had. And we did it for various reasons, technical advantages and a lot of innovation that we wanted to bring in. But the fact remains that a small team who was responsible for that component was able to make that change possible because we had these clean abstractions and this loose coupling across our entire architecture. Practically what happens is that why most telcos, or our take on why most telcos and most organizations deviate from this ideal that you always start with, is because there's also organizational complexity which is not solved simultaneous to the technical complexity. And what do I mean? That there is this very powerful law called Conway's law, which says that unless your organization and your technology architecture are working in tandem, one tends to dilute the other. Especially the organizational architecture tends to dilute your technical architecture. So what we have also done is many of these components we are given to independent teams who are custodians of that component. So effectively, if that team has to coordinate with another team, they have to have a formal interface. And that means the architectural discipline of maintaining those clean interfaces is never diluted because we have these two teams who are requiring to interface with each other to do anything. If not, what would happen if suppose it were all being handled by, let's say, one monolithic organization? All these interfaces over time you will find will get diluted. You will start getting tighter and tighter coupling between these components. And one fine day you will figure out that if you want to make a change, if you want to touch any part of that stack, there are changes that will percolate across other components, and then it becomes a very detailed, long-term, high-cost, high-effort transformation initiative that you have to undertake because it's a big bang initiative that we have to take at some point. So we have tried to keep our technology architecture relatively loosely coupled, teams aligned to that, so that continuous change and continuous improvements can keep on happening. And that's the way we think we have tried to get our arms around the complexity that may accumulate over time, or trying to fight against the complexity that may occur over time.
Interesting.
How would we suggest somebody else would do it?
Yeah.
I would. And there are other parts of our organization where we have had to. Now, for example, JPL is working with our retail team. Now, retail team is already 20 years into existence. We started in 2005. They have a lot of legacy. So we are helping them overcome this by first helping to create these interfaces. So taking this monolithic architecture, trying to first carve it out into manageable components, which are talking to each other in a more loosely coupled manner, and then over time further fragment it into smaller and smaller chunks. But at least the big pieces we have tried to decouple them for them, so that you can undertake smaller and more manageable changes, which are more sustainable over time than these big bang transformations, which we don't believe would be successful in the long term.
But Kiran, you made it very, very, very simple in the way how you said. But the good thing is that we know that you are actually doing it. Then it's possible to do it, and that is what should be the learning and inspiration for the rest of the industry to follow your steps. So you are known not only on the continuous improvement, but your mantra is continuously challenging, and so you are known as a challenger in India, but as well in the industry. And you don't accept the established standards that are not 2 decades, but hundreds, more 160 years as we are, 167 years old. And you actually started this whole open network and open system approach and developed Open RAN as well within your own setup. So maybe 2 questions for you, really inspired with your 5G development and the charging and billing. By the way, we are just right now in the same phase in Asia. So how ready you are to offer that services, and I mean services, charging and billing services or 5G SA services outside India, and how fast and quickly you can mobilize and support the rest of the industry in order to come to the same level as you have deployed in Jio. And then maybe some advices and views from your side when you move into the complete open architecture, and you call it service architecture, but it is open. What you mentioned about the organizational architecture, but what culture changes and what competencies and talents do we as well need to have in order to really marry those two in order to succeed in the ambition as you are quite successfully doing?
Correct. So I think you have touched upon the heart of the entire problem, which is organization and talent and culture, which we believe is where you need to start if you're undertaking this journey. And various people have highlighted that there needs to be a safe harbor for some of this talent to be housed away from what is considered to be traditional telco, quote unquote, telco culture. I mean, everything is now becoming more and more open and digital, but nonetheless, there is probably an older culture and a new culture which we are trying to create. Our own solution has been to create JPL as a separate entity. So while our telecom is an operator, they understand customers, market, solutions extremely well. They work like a regimented army when it comes to deploying the network, managing the network, and to prevent that culture, and that culture is absolutely essential to succeed in the market in many cases. But equally, we are wanting to create this digital culture. So we have created a separate organization with its own structures, its own incentives, its own practices, and so on, especially when it comes to managing talent. So that has been our solutions to this, so that we don't try to mix them too prematurely, maybe creating some resistance in either one part or the other part of the organization. Now, readiness to offer it was another question that you asked. Our own playbook that we are following is that we believe we have built something very valuable, but we would absolutely want to prove it at scale before we offer it to somebody else, eating your own dog food, as people would call it. So we are going through this massive rollout in 5G. The products are deployed right now in our network. The entire core is our own. Some of almost all the software solutions that we've been working on is also built internally. But there are also a number of external partners solutions that we have been able to integrate. So for example, today on the radio tier, we have our own solution, but we also have strong partners like Nokia and Ericsson and Samsung also providing. So it's kind of like an open framework where it is not another vertical stovepipe that we are creating, which is a Jio stovepipe, but rather it's an open architecture where multiple partners can come and collaborate. Through this year, we believe that we would substantially prove this product and make it ready for the rest of the market, because we ourselves will be taking the first set of arrows and solving those problems. So we believe that 2023 is the year when we are looking to extend outside of India and to take it outside into other markets. And many of those conversations now we are starting to have. So we believe they will become more and more serious as the year progresses. And we hope to have a lot of those fructifying into practical relationships and initiatives that we can work together with other partners globally. In terms of things like open standards, we are big believers in open standards. In the forum itself, TM Forum, we have been right from day one adopting all of the standards and trying to make sure that we deploy them in our own architecture, and which has helped us tremendously in bringing multiple partners together to create some of these interesting solutions. Things like ORAN, which is another area that we are working on the radio side. We are working with all the partners and ensuring that compliance is there. The separation between the RU, DU, CU, I mean, those interfaces are very well clearly separated. Although from a practical deployment perspective, we are probably simplifying those substantially by making sure that people have end-to-end accountability to prove that and deploy it and make it work. But we are very, very clear that over time, we need to have these options to evolve that into a more competitive, more innovative, more, I would say, flexible architecture going forward. So from the deployment perspective, we have tried to keep it simpler to manage some of the complexities. But some of these open interfaces, again, to ensure that architectural discipline is followed, we verify it, validate it extensively before we allow any of the partners to come and deploy in our own network. So that means we have that flexibility to kind of evolve, taking advantage of many of these open standards into the future. But not just that, if we go to the external market, it is proven to work with other vendors. So again, we are not offering something which is only from us, but we are already showcasing a capability where we can work with other industry partners to bring together a solution which may be what our customers may be interested in.
Yeah, a lot to learn and follow up, Kiran, from you.
The time is unfortunately running very fast here, Kiran. So let me end with one of the points you just made. You said 2023 is the year where you want to move outside India. So let me then ask you, where will Jio Platforms be in 5 years' time? What's the ambition?
Yeah, so again, to just highlight our playbook, the entire digital stack is where we believe we are playing, but not just in terms of technology, but bringing together our own capabilities, but also partner capabilities to bring together interesting industry solutions. Telecom is the first industry that we addressed as JPL, because our own Jio Telecom is a digital entity, taking advantage of all the strengths that JPL has to disrupt and innovate in the Indian market. But through that telecom, we are also reaching out to a very wide ecosystem of industry verticals. So while we are building the technology stack, we are also simultaneously trying to create industry solutions which we can prove using our own internal operating companies in these various industry verticals where the Reliance Group is already present, but also taking it to other customers in India, all of which hopefully we will make substantial progress in the coming 5 years. So if you ask me where we see ourselves, if I had a wish list, I would say that many of these industry solutions are already deployed globally. We are working with strong partners in other markets to be able to take some of the innovation that we have done in this market and make it relevant for those other markets. And we have a great story of capability built in India, but working very closely with strong global partners to take some of these solutions and make it available much more broadly globally. And if we succeed in that, obviously, that will position us as one of the most valuable digital companies to come out of India, and maybe, who knows, in the globe as well.
Thank you so much, Kiran. And as we all know, everything is big in India, including the ambitions. So glad to hear the ambitions you have on those the different verticals way outside telecom. So thank you so much for joining us, and to all of you, thank for listening in and watching this Telco Talk.